Scott, and today we're going to be doing a brief devotional in the book of Philippians. We've been going through this book recently, and in chapter 1, verse 27, Paul says that you all should live as citizens of heaven, and then after that he gives 4 examples of how believers in Philippi are supposed to live as citizens of heaven. First, he talks about how to suffer for Christ. Then he talks about focusing on others, and in our passage today, he's going to talk about having the same attitude as Christ. So we're going to be reading from the New Living Translation, chapter 2 of Philippians, verses 5 through 11. Paul writes, "You must have the same attitude that Christ had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Therefore, God elevated him to the place of highest honor and gave him the name above all other names, that at the time of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." That's Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11, God's word given to us. And in this passage, Paul is continuing on his line of thought, as I mentioned, that you're all supposed to live as citizens of heaven. And here he talks about how we should have the same attitude as Christ, that Christ humbled himself. Paul talks about Christ's humility here in verses 6 through 8. And then he talks about how God raised Christ up and exalted Christ in verses 9 through 11. And in these devotionals, I like to sometimes give an illustration or example or something like that. But for this one, I don't think there's any greater example of how we can submit to others and serve others than how Jesus has given us as an example here about how he was God, came down to earth as a human being as well as God, humbled himself, died on the cross, resurrected, and also gave us life through that process. So I'd like to challenge you this week, today, this month. How can you talk to others about Jesus? How can you give examples of the things that he did in your own life to help point people to Jesus and learn more about him? My name is Pastor Christopher. I hope you enjoyed this devotional today and hope to catch you back again for another one as we go through the book of Philippians. If you like these devotionals, you can get additional notes that I create for the books of the Bible that I teach through at Patreon. You can get my original translation notes for the passage, a handout to use in small group format, and you can also get a verse-by-verse teaching outline that I create that I use when I teach through these passages in sermons or in small group Bible studies.